Hi everyone. So, I just got back from seeing The Incredibles 2. Before I get into that, I would like to briefly discuss how I feel about the first film, which I love. I do. I think it's one of the best of the Pixar films that I've seen. I grew up with it basically at a very young age. It came out when I was like 11, 12 years old, something like that, and I just loved it. I had a blast with it. My family used to watch it quite a bit when I was younger, and it kind of stuck with me. It's not my favorite of the Pixar movies, but it is quite high up there. If I were to have to pick like a top five, it would be in there. And going into the second movie, I was looking forward to it quite a bit. I was glad to hear that Brad Bird, the writer and director of the first film, was back for this one, who I'm a pretty big fan of, and a lot of people are pretty big fans of that I'm aware of, with The Incredibles and The Iron Giant and Mission Impossible 4. He did the fourth one, right? Ghost Protocol. Yeah, I think. I think it was Ghost Protocol. Anyways, one of the Mission Impossibles that I believe was 4. Uh, he did. He did do one movie I wasn't a big fan of, and that was Tomorrowland. And even though I wasn't a big fan of it, there were parts of it that I did enjoy. I did like certain aspects of it and stuff like that. But it still didn't deter me from being excited for Incredibles 2 at all. So I went into this with pretty high hopes, and I came out relatively satisfied, honestly. I wouldn't say. I know Felix. I wouldn't say it's as good as the first film, but it's still pretty darn good. I I wish it didn't take like 14 years and 3 Cars movies to get this movie finally. But I'm glad it's out. I'm glad we finally are getting more Incredibles movies and no more Cars sequels. There was a little blooper before the movie started of all the actors and the directors saying, like, we know it's been a long time. It's been 14 years, but I'm glad you waited. Like, that doesn't excuse Cars 3, damn it. It was a hunk of shit, honestly. It really was. Anywho, Incredibles 2, not a hunk of shit. If you don't know what Incredibles 2 is about, it takes place literally like right after the events of the first film, like seconds after where the first film ends with, the Underminer coming out from the ground saying, I declare war on peace and happiness. And so it takes place right after that, and it goes from there into a story about how there's a guy and his sister trying to get supers back into the forefront and not be illegal, because if you've seen the first film, you know that because of certain things that happen, being a superhero and doing superhero stuff was banned and completely illegal to do anymore. And this film has it to where, a guy who's trying to represent Elastigirl and Mr. Incredible and Frozone is representing them and trying to get it to where the government legalizes their superhero actions again. And so from there, a villain called the Screenslaver comes out and starts causing mayhem that Elastigirl has to specifically try and defeat against, while Bob, aka Mr. Incredible, has to stay home and take care of the kids, while Elastigirl tries to deal with the villain and trying to prove that supers are needed and should not be illegal anymore. And it's pretty solid. It's a pretty solid sequel. Uh, I love the characters. They don't, so much stuttering. They don't seem like, 10 years has passed, so they've so matured or changed at all, because, that wouldn't make sense with how they've structured this sequel to go right beside the first. So, everyone feels like they just jumped right back into it, and they feel the same, and they feel just as likable as they did in the first movie, and I enjoyed that. There was a lot of really great action. This movie is stylish, it's funny, it's got a lot going for it. I just have minor gripes. Honestly, I feel like whatever I say from here is just nitpicking. I just kind of feel like this movie didn't feel quite as focused in terms of its story as the first film. With the first film, it felt very focused in where it was going. Everything felt organic, and it led to a very clear conclusion and all that, with, Mr. Incredible trying to deal with, not being a superhero anymore, then gets a chance to be a superhero, and then that leads to the family kind of getting into trouble alongside him, and they defeat the bad guy by the end of the day. While this one, it's got a couple of different plots going. It starts off with the Underminer stuff, and that goes for about 10-15 minutes, and then that kind of stops, and then all of a sudden, supers are just completely illegal, and that, they shouldn't exist, and then all of a sudden the agent guy comes out, and wants to focus on Elastigirl being the forefront of making supers legal again. So we got Elastigirl and the agent and his sister's story going on, while everything going on with Bob at home with the kids is going on. So you have like the story about Bob trying to keep track of his baby, Jack, because he's discovered that he's got powers, so that becomes a whole thing. And then there's this thing with Violet and the boy that she likes, and because he discovered that Violet was a superhero, the boy had to get his brain washed, so he completely forgets who Violet is. This is just a minor spoiler, honestly, and it just kind of stuff like that specific plotline kind of deters from what's the main focus of what should be going on with like Elastigirl, or it just feels like a plot thread that could have been cut, and then there's stuff with Dash, and he has to do his homework, and it just goes into a couple different directions that I feel like it could have, if it had more focus to it, it would have been all the stronger for it. But that being said, it doesn't really break the movie. And the villain, some people say that they didn't much care for the villain from the first movie. I'm forgetting what the villain's name was, honestly, but Jason Lee's character, that was the villain in the first movie, I liked. At the very least, he was funny. This villain, you could see coming from a mile away, and it isn't really that entertaining or funny or charismatic to really watch, so I was just kind of like, okay, whatever, it's just someone for them to defeat. So, and the second they show up on screen, you just kind of go, that's the bad guy. Okay, got it. But that being said, it's still a good movie. It's still got some really good moments to it, with specifically its comedy. There's a whole bit with Jack and a raccoon, because Jack believes that this raccoon is a burglar because after watching like TV he sees like burglars wear masks, and then a raccoon outside trying to just eat some chicken out of the garbage, has, the black around its eyes. So Jack picks a fight with this raccoon, and it is hilarious. A lot of the stuff with Jack and Bob, Mr. Incredible, is really good. It's really funny, honestly. A lot of the action sequences with Elastigirl are great. The style of the movie, it is a gorgeous looking movie. It's like honestly one of the best looking movies that Pixar has released, because it is just gorgeous with its cinematography, with its Art Deco designs and everything. It is beautiful, which I assume is highly because of Brad Bird's involvement, but regardless, it is phenomenal looking. To go back into another thing is like my last little gripe. I never felt as emotionally invested as I did in the first film. In the first film, there are times where it just kind of tugs at the heartstring, like with, if you haven't seen the first movie, kind of a spoiler alert, where when Mr. Incredible at one point believes that his family has died, and you just kind of see something in him snap, and he's kind of a broken shell of a man there, and it's got a lot of weight to it, in the first movie. In this movie, there's never really a moment like that, or any scene that really gets me like really super drawn into the character, into any of the characters, really. There's good moments with them, with like, Bob just trying to figure out how to be a good dad and feeling like he's a bit overwhelmed, but it never gets to the heights that the first film got, for myself anyways. With all that being said, it's still a really good movie. It's still very funny. It's got some clever moments. It's got some great action to it. It's got some creativity in terms of its action. And I had a lot of fun with it. Would I put it in the top 5 of Pixar's filmography? No, I wouldn't, honestly. But that doesn't mean it's bad at all. It's really good. It's leaps and bounds above any of the Cars movies. It's a hell of a lot better than The Good Dinosaur, which I thought was probably Pixar's worst movie. It's tough to, for me, it's tough to choose between either like one of the Cars sequels or The Good Dinosaur, because I did not care for those. I know I'm late to the party on this one, a few weeks late, but I finally got a chance to see it. So hope you enjoyed my thoughts on Incredibles 2, and I hope that you go see it, because it's honestly pretty good. So take care. Bye.